This is a video for the quadratics module, and in this video we are looking at section Quad H. In this section we're looking at the quadratic formula. Now the quadratic formula is another method of finding solutions to quadratic equations, so an alternative to factorising. Now factorising doesn't always work, so that's why we have the quadratic formula. And it is stated as x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Writing that out about 20 times will help you memorise it. This formula uses coefficients of a, b and c to determine the values of x which satisfy the quadratic equation, hence solving the equation. Now the maximum number of solutions is 2 for a quadratic equation, as the highest power of the variable in the quadratic is 2. And as already said, the quadratic formula is beneficial when you cannot factorise a quadratic. Now let's look at one part of the quadratic formula, which is what we call the discriminant, and that's sometimes seen by a triangle, b squared minus 4ac. Now the discriminant determines how many solutions there will be to the equation. If b squared minus 4ac is positive, then we're going to have 2 real solutions. If b squared minus 4ac is 0, then we're only going to have 1 solution. If the discriminant is negative, there are going to be no real solutions. And that's because it's not possible to find the square root of a negative number. Now to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula, ensure the equation is written in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Write out your values of a, b and c with the correct signs. Substitute into the formula and evaluate. Now remember, if the discriminant is negative, there will be no solutions. So let's look at the first example, x squared minus 14x plus 45 equals 0. Now general form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So whatever's in front of the x squared term is our a, so in this case a equals 1. Whatever's in front of the x term is b, so b is negative 14, and our constant is c, which is 45. So write out the formula, x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, and plug in the values. So minus b is minus 14 becomes plus 14, plus or minus the square root of 14 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 45, all over 2 times a, which is 1. Okay, now use your calculator to evaluate that. 14 squared minus 4 times 1 times 45 gives 16. 2 times 1 is 2. So from, square root of 16 is 4. So that's 4 plus or minus 14 plus or minus 4 all over 2. So from that we can split into 2. X can be 14 plus 4 all over 2, or x can be 14 minus 4 all over 2. 14 plus 4 is 18. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 14 minus 4 is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So x is 5. So there are our 2 solutions. Let's look at the next one. 3x squared plus 2x plus 8 equals 0. Now a is equal to 3, b is equal to 2, and c is equal to 8. Okay? Formula, x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug it in. Negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times 8 all over 2 times 3. So at negative 2 plus or minus, now plug this in. 2 squared is 4 minus 4 times 3 times 8, and I get negative 92 all over 6. Now I have a negative square root, which you can't do. Okay, so therefore there are no solutions. Okay, another one, x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals 0. Now a is 1, b is negative 3, c is negative 5. Okay, write the formula, x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug in. Negative 3 is 3, plus or minus square root of negative 3 all squared. Now be careful of that, negative 3 all squared. So put the negative 3 in brackets. Minus 4 times a times negative 5 all over 2 times 1. So I have 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 all squared is positive 9. So it's 9 minus 4 times 1 times negative 5 becomes 29. 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, from there we can't, square root of 29, it's not a perfect square, so we can't simplify that. So we have 3 plus the square root of 29 all over 2, so that's x, or x equals 3 minus the square root of 29 all over 2. Okay, now you are more likely to get answers like that. Next, 4x plus 1 equals negative 4x squared. That's a negative, so I'm going to take it over here to make it a positive. So I get 4x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. So a is 4, b is 4, c is 1. So x is minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, which becomes negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times 1. Always show the substitution. So if you make a mistake, at least people can see that you've done that correctly. Now 4 squared is 16. 16 minus 4 times 1 is 0. All over 2 times 4 is 8. So this is a case of only having one solution. You've got negative 4 plus or minus square root of 0 is just 0 over 8, which is negative 1/2. Okay. What to do now? Practice time. Exercise Quad H1 in the textbook has questions using the quadratic formula. Remember, ask for help if you need it.